In this episode of the AI Adoption Podcast, Julia Bastian shares different cases, different scenarios of AI adoption and what it made with their team at Alasco. Alasco is a prop tech company in Germany. Julia was their VP product, and now she's responsible for bringing AI into Alasco. And she's also working as a consultant with other companies to bring AI into their world. In this episode, we make the difference between using AI for optimization internally, using AI for building normal features in your product, and building AI features into your product. And she talks about how they at Alasco now work with AI to build all of these, to do all of these. And spoiler, it's 1 out of 3 teams that does that, and the other teams are still a bit shy. And we talk about why it is this way and what makes the one team different compared to the other two. And we also go very deep into the roles that have changed in the product organization and the skills for product managers to be successful to work with AI. Hope you enjoy the episode, and as always, if you have any questions, reach out to me or to Julia. Julia, hi. Good to see you back from vacation. How are you?
Hi, Bushra. Nice to be here. Yes, everything good so far.
Chilled and ready for our conversation?
Yes, of course. Always ready for AI conversations.
Wonderful. That's the reason why I asked you to join to talk about AI adoption, and how we in the product organization now work with AI, without AI, to implement AI, to not use AI, and so on and so forth. And I'm very happy that you said yes, because you have not only seen the organization that you work for, but also different other organizations, and can tell a lot about what is happening where, and can give quite good detailed examples, right?
Yes,
Before
I
we
hope
get
so.
into that, yes, I'm pretty sure. And before we get to that, please, would you like to introduce yourself a little bit, and the company that you work for, and the setup, and what that means, what I just said, like, so many companies law and so on. So
Yes.
please, Julia.
Yes. So
who are you?
So hi, I'm Julia Bastian. I'm located in Munich, and I'm working for Alasco. And Alasco is a prop tech, so we are doing financial controlling for the construction industry. And I've been working for this company for 6-7 years, and I've been the VP product there and scaled the organization because we are VC funded. So we had a really fast scaling phase. And then I actually became a mom, and I stepped back from my leadership role and actually stepped over to leading everything around AI, because it was actually pretty much to that time when ChatGPT was released, and we were all really excited. And me and one of our founders, we have, like, after 2 weeks, we've already released and tried out with customers our first feature with AI. And since then,
That was
I'm
2022.
Yes, 2022,
Wow.
end of the year, shortly before Christmas, we already tested with 5 customers our first feature, and I was pretty excited. Our output wasn't amazing back then, but it was still kind of cool what was already possible. And since then, I'm actually doing everything around AI. I'm only working at Alasco for 2 days anymore, and so far anymore. And like, I'm doing the internal automizing of processes. So, for example, we have, like, automized the whole customer support process. So also beyond the product organization. And we've also released now real AI features that are live in our product and bring new customer value. And besides that, like, the other 3 days that I have, I'm working as a freelancer, and I'm consulting companies all around AI. So from companies that are not tech companies, so like enablements for banks and, like, their managers there, but also, and that's, like, also my main focus, tech companies. So how do you actually build AI products? How does working with AI and building AI products change the way you approach product management? And what remains the same, because, like, the basic mindset will still be there. And yeah, that's what I'm actually doing right now. I'm experimenting a lot with a lot of things. And I also experience a lot of FOMO. I feel like a lot of times, like, even so I'm doing this every day, I still feel sometimes like I'm not ahead of everything, and I'm not updated with all the AI news happening right now. But yeah, that's
It
who
feels
I
so
am
good
and
when
what
you
I'm
say
doing.
that, because like I feel like I'm so behind, and there's so much happening every week. There's something new, and hearing from someone who's actually completely in the weeds that you also have FOMO. I mean, this feels good. Thank you.
I sometimes would wish that it slows down and that I could settle with the things happening a little bit, and like, yeah, but yes, I
Yeah,
do feel
yeah,
FOMO.
I feel you. Let's jump in to the topic of AI adoption and how it changes things and what actually remains, right? So this is kind of like three main themes: the adoption itself, what has changed, and what stays the same. And you also mentioned there are two main scenarios for that. One is internal enablement, like automation or like efficiency increase through agents, probably, and through optimizations with AI. And the other case is building AI products or building AI into products. So you
Exactly.
mentioned these two types of cases,
Yes.
right?
Yes, exactly.
So, and you mentioned already you have started to experiment with AI at Alasco already in 2022. So, my first question is, where are you now in this experimentation phase after what is it now, three and a
3 years.
half years, 3 years? And what did you go through? Like, which steps did you go through to get where you are now? That's the AI adoption part.
Okay, let's start in the beginning. Like 2022, we released our first feature. And what was our first feature? Pretty much, you can imagine in Alasco, you have an invoice process, like all invoices from construction processes need to be checked against a contract, a construction contract. And we automized that. Like we checked, is this the right amount? Does that fit? And so on. This was kind of our first feature we did. And it worked out pretty okay, but it was like we got stuck with an 85% case. So it was okayish, but not good enough that customers were highly excited about it. So we learned a lot, and then we kind of stopped this for the moment. While we stopped this, we started to do an enablement throughout the whole organization and explain people, how do large language models work? What is AI? How can you use it in your daily doing? How can you use ChatGPT? How can you scale your processes with that? Because that's also the point in time where we not only thought about like how can each individual person use ChatGPT, but actually how can you automate processes? Because we're working a lot with Make and N8N, and we already automated a lot of deterministic processes. So like just steps that happen after each other. And with AI, there was a huge possibility now that you can automate processes. And in between, there's a large language model, for example, writing a text and then automating it again. So that's the part where we also created new roles at Alasco. This was like also beyond product. So we, for example, had a go-to-market engineer, and this person was only focusing on automating those processes with AI. So as an example, we automated the customer support process, and now like all the tickets coming in from customers like asking for something are now like connected to our old base of tickets and all the questions they like over the last 6 years that have been asked. And then we're checking this question, which question was similar in a vector database from past tickets. And then we're creating, based on those answers, a proposal answer, and customer success is then using that in order to draft an ad, or actually they get the proposal, and I would say 85% they send out directly, and 5% is like hallucination and shitty, and they need to draft it themselves. But that way we could like automate processes. So this was the first part. So
And
it was,
and the
please.
person who takes care of this is called go-to-market engineer.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Never heard of it before.
It was probably more revenue operations. And then in this revenue operations team, the new role also a lot of companies have in Silicon Valley is called go-to-market engineer.
Interesting. Okay,
And I
cool.
think this already symbolizes a little bit our adoption process. So it wasn't so much about product and engineering just adopting it. It was way more about the organization working differently as a whole. And I would say after a year, it more started to like focus, or like there was a higher focus on product engineering on top of that. And what happened there, like on the one side, product and engineering started to work a little bit different. I think the biggest change for product managers was vibe coding. Like building UX prototypes became different. You didn't work with Figma anymore. It was a lot of stuff was built in Lovable or V0. Then engineering started to use Cursor or other IDEs that use large language models in the background. That
And that was
changed.
when?
I would
When they
say,
started to use it?
yes, I would say a year ago, they really, really started doing this continuously. And it's still not all teams at Alasco. So I would say we have one team that is really, really deep in this, and they probably code 80% of their coding is vibe coding. And then there are teams that are more skeptical. So it is still a huge difference, even in a company that is really tech driven. Still, we have a lot of young people that are careful and skeptical about all of this.
Oh, wait, I have two interesting pieces here that I want to ask. Well, first of all, how big is Alaska? How many teams do you have?
So as a total, we are 80, 90 people, and we have 3 product teams with 1 product manager, 1 designer, and 3 to 6 engineers in each team.
And 1 out of 3 is completely vibe code, AI coding everything.
Yes.
And the other 2 are skeptical.
Yes, more skeptical.
Okay.
And the biggest difference here is like, why did this change and why has there become such a high difference between those teams? The one team that really vibe codes now, they also build our first real AI products at Alasco that we really implemented. And they got really deep into AI because of that. And with this, they also started vibe coding, and they like just lost they are still skeptical with some things, and you should be, but they just understood how to do it because you had to change the way you're working.
Okay, I'll get to that. That's super interesting because that comes to way of working and how you got there. But first, my other question. So you mentioned there are many young people who are skeptical.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that, because I so far had the feeling, hey, cool, young people are more open to it, and maybe we are more skeptical because we value the craft kind of thing. But then you tell me the younger ones are the ones that are more skeptical. Tell me more about it.
So I would say Alaska in general, we are like in an average probably like 32 or something. So in general, we are a young organization. And I would say the engineers are really skeptical, some of them, because I think their craft changes as a whole. And I think it's probably really difficult to like see that things are going totally different, how they learned it, were they good at. That's where their self-esteem is. And now there are people now that are 10 times faster than them, and they are building code and they just review it and they don't write every line themselves. And I think this is just scaring them, and they feel FOMO. And it's actually the first time that I feel a real conflict in our engineering organization, because engineering is always a really smooth team. And it's the first time we're like having like a little bit of discrepancies here in that team.
And may I ask, what are the things that Alasco is doing to take away their fear or like incentivize somehow? I mean, let me use the word incentivize, but I don't know if you incentivize actively. But like, what are you doing to help them get over this fear?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I think it's experience. It's experiencing it. And that's why we're doing a lot of hackathons. Like probably every 2 months, we have a hackathon with a certain topic. Can be something internal, can be something whatever. And of course, we like motivate them, engage them to like vibe code and to build AI features in this hackathons. And that helps them. And it's already getting better. It's just, yeah. Also, it must be weird for the engineering teams that one team is so fast now and is building AI products, and they do something so different and they get so much attention from the organization, and the others might not get as much attention. I think that's also where it's coming from. But I think hackathons help a lot. Enablement, like in general, enablement, where people who build something share what they learned, what worked well, what didn't, and also to take their sphere serious. So like really talk with them about it, like what is going on, like how do you feel? Because it's more than just technically adapting AI. It's about our feelings behind all of that.
And who talks with them? Their line managers or like peers?
Line managers, CTOs, and also like conversation rounds we're guiding.
And when you say enablement, you gave some examples like show, don't tell, and help them understand. What else would you put under enablement?
I think it's the basic enablement of understanding large language models, understanding what tools are out there, how you can use it. So like just the baseline to start with that. And on top of this, I think it needs to get practical, like with hackathons, sharing rounds, like the team who built an AI agent now like shared all of their learnings, shared what they would have done differently doing this again. So I think that's important.
Okay, cool. Which brings me back to my question that I held back, which is coming back to the one team that is completely deep into it. How do they work now? Let's kind of move a little bit in the direction of ways of working.
Yeah.
How do they work now compared to before? Well, I mean, maybe did that team exist in this way before, or is it a new team?
A little bit more new team, or at least like added a couple of engineers to it. Yes.
Okay, so basically, how do they work now compared to before AI or before using AI, or compared to the other two teams, and or let's say,
yes,
if it's crazy.
That's actually the point where I want to distinguish a little bit about from like building normal products, like building normal SaaS products features with the help of AI, and building AI products, because both of them kind of changes a little bit. They have both an influence on how product management works. So I want to start with like if I build a normal SaaS feature now, what did change? So let's start with this case. So how do you use AI? So from a product management perspective, what changed is probably the whole insight management. So where do you get the insights from? So what we're doing now is like we are transcribing all sales calls. We're transcribing all customer success calls. We're transcribing every interaction with customers. So it's the first time the product gets access to all of those calls in a way that they can work with this information. Because before that, if they wanted to have that information, they would have to jump into a sales call or watch the recording. And now all of this is transcribed. And we have built an agent that they can now, like they are all saved as markdown files. And now with an agent, they can access all this information. So you can then, for example, ask a question, hey, what are the biggest pain points that were mentioned in sales calls over the last month? And then you get like citations from the calls, get insights, pain points, and all of that. So that changed. So you have way more access to gathered information. And with this, you're doing synthesizing. And that's cool because you have more information, and probably synthesizing is also faster. But, and that's a huge danger here, I think synthesizing with AI has some dangers with it, because AI a lot of times doesn't see the edge case. It more summarizes than it synthesizes. As an example, an interview or a sales call, a customer might have said one thing in minute 3 and another thing in minute 18, and it might be totally contradicting. So what is the LLM really using? So this is hard to like really get to the core parts of it. So I would say it does a good job in like the 80% cases, but the 20% cases where a lot of times the real insights are lying still need to be done by a product manager. At least the person needs to go dig deep into the information, because otherwise, and that's the biggest danger, people or product managers are losing gut feeling, product intuition, because if they're just working with an LLM, they're not involved in the conversations anymore.
That's a good point. Like, how do your product managers know when to go deeper and when to just take what the LLM says?
I hope they always go deeper. And they...
Good answer.
Like, I think it's always a combination of both. It's not like automating it with AI completely. It's like having own thinking and adding own thinking with AI and synthesizing it. And like what I do a lot is like if I have to do a research, I'm like researching a little bit, read through some stuff, read through some interviews. Then I ask AI a couple of questions. Then I start to draw something down. And then I feel like, that's not perfect yet. Then I put it into the AI, then I change it again. So it's more like a companion that I take through the whole discovery process. But it only works good if I'm still thinking. Like I had a discovery 1 week ago that I did, and I needed to be fast. So I tried, hey, I'll just do everything with AI. And I was really fast. And I got a really fast dashboard that I could use as a testing for our international customers. It was great and everyone was happy with it, but I didn't feel good with it because I felt like I didn't have those aha moments in between. That's what discovery lives on. Like there wasn't a moment where I said, now I understood something really important. Now I got a new structure that I didn't have before. Yeah. It was all a little bit blurry.
You also don't get to hear the voice of the person, right? And don't see their facial expressions. Exactly. and cannot really read if what they said is true or not, right?
Exactly. So I think it's a good starting point, but then you have to do customer interviews and get into it deeper. So that's all about insight management, but this is a huge change in product management in general. And then the other thing is, I think, collaboration between engineering, product, and design changes in a way. So with a new feature we're just building, we started way earlier with feasible prototypes. So in former times, what would we have done? We would have probably done a couple of interviews, then drafted a first UX mock-up. Maybe it is clickable. Then we would have done interviews. We would have done thinking out loud. They would have clicked through it, explained what they see, what it helps them, and so on. That would have been our normal process. And then we would have specified it, and then engineering would have taken over and developed something. So now engineering and product are just way more working with each other because we had a couple of interviews and then engineers already built the first feature right away, and not one version, but 3 versions. So it was actually, it was kind of a sensitivity analysis for calculating if a construction project might make sense or doesn't make sense. So that was kind of the feature they built. And instead of making one sensitivity analysis and one visualization of that, they made 5 tabs that were functioning. They were totally functional, and they showed the functional prototypes to customers with their real life data. And because they were so fast in building that, we were able to do that. In former times, this would have probably taken us 2 months to build. Now it was an engineer working 1 or 2 weeks on that, and if even and then they had those 5 different examples, and now we could test them with real life data, and that makes such a huge difference. And now engineers are making a lot of the design decisions, and actually designers are not involved a lot anymore. In this team, we have really good front-end engineers, and they are making the decisions, of course, based on our design system that we have set up one time. So that's clear, but based on that, they have pretty much done the end-to-end process without a product manager defining exactly how this is looking like.
Okay, maybe let's take it from there. And here I have also, again, 2 points to dive in. So one is, and I'll just ask both, and maybe you can just maybe you can cover both, or maybe you say, okay, no, let's take it step by step. So one thought was, okay, if I have to put it together now, and maybe you have an example where you can walk us through, how does the end-to-end process, let's say, look like for when you are building a feature for a product? How does it look like? How do they work together end to end?
Yeah.
And then the other question that I have in my mind now, okay, so the roles are changing, and you also mentioned design is not involved so much. You have the design system. So which role has changed in which way, and how did that change the dynamics in the team? So,
yes.
Yeah.
So we started with this topic actually with a design sprint of 3 days, where the whole engineering team and the whole or the product managers and the designer was involved. And 3 days, we really dived into the depth of this topic. Like we gathered all information we had. We did the first customer interviews. We did a first prototype just by drawing and like nothing feasible yet, tested it, and really had 3 days focus on this topic to understand it. From this on, the product manager defined the playing field. Like, what is really our goal? What metrics do we want to change with this? Why are we doing this from a business perspective? Why are we doing this from a customer perspective? What are the different parts of this solution? So, like, really defining what this could be. And then they did, again, a couple of customer interviews to understand in depth, like, is there a willingness to pay and so on. And with this, there were 2 engineers really deeply involved into this. And you need a different kind of engineer to do this. This is not the normal engineer that likes to code and is not involved with customers. We needed engineers that are really like to have an entrepreneurial spirit and talk with customers. So then they pretty much understood all the topics, and then they started to build parts of the bigger product that we were building. And that's where they actually started to really do feasible prototypes right from the beginning. Like, I think our product manager might have like made some mock-ups and like did some team meetings or like workshops where they already refined a couple of things that they all have the same understanding. But then they really fast switched into a feasible prototype that they tested with live data with customers. And with that, they're now refining all of this. And yeah, that's actually kind of how it worked.
Okay. And to the roles, like what is the main thing of the roles then now? I
Yes.
mean, you mentioned now the product manager gives input in which direction it needs to go. The designer isn't really involved other than making sure that the design system is there. Actually, the engineers are rocking everything kind of thing. And what does a design, let's start with the designer. What does a designer do now? Like,
So in this team, since we have a really strong front-end engineer that has been with Alasco for a long time, this person is pretty much doing this. So there is a designer once in a while involved if we feel like, hey, this is a totally new part or something we don't have as a pattern in Alasco, then they might be involved. Other than that, they're not really involved in it.
and when they are involved, what they are doing, are they reviewing or are they actually making the design? So
So
what are they
both.
doing?
They would review something, or they then, after like we have now a feasible prototype, they would say, hey, cool, looks already nice, we tested it, and now let's make a final version. Now let's tweak this. We should make this different in the visualization. So that's where they come in and like really make it better, but they wouldn't make the first definition before it's built. It's more, everything is more interacted with each other. Like they're just... it feels actually, I feel like it feels more natural how they are working now.
Okay,
And
so they've built something and then the designer comes in, like when the team has proven they're like it's feasible and we have iterated a couple of times until it's something that we can start to actually build, then the designer comes in, reviews and makes the final touches on how it would be better now, how it would be more usable now.
exactly, at least this is with
Okay.
this part now. I wouldn't say I have the blueprint for it yet, and I'm not totally sure how it's evolving. It was more a natural thing that happened in this team.
Yeah. Yeah, which
Yeah.
is fine. This is what I'm trying to find
Yeah.
out, right? Where does this
Yeah,
go?
totally.
Okay, the product manager gives input. What is this? So you mentioned gives goals, metrics, gives in the business perspective and customer perspective, why this is important. So in which way, what's the role of the product manager now in this way of working?
So
What do they do very specifically?
the funniest thing I've experienced here is that the product manager working on this, she's actually really stressed out because the engineers are too fast. And she's like, wow, I can't review it anymore. It's like just too much stuff going on. One of our engineers worked like 1 week over Christmas and he pretty much just built the whole feature. And she's like, oh my God, like it's already, it's kind of hard for her to even keep like in the lead of this. Like, this is still what they are figuring out right now, that they can run and do stuff, but still they need to like align with each other and not just be highly excited that everything is so fast. So I feel like she would be even happy to have less engineers to slow down a little bit once in a while. And she's doing like a lot of customer interviews, arranging, coordinating everything around that. She's reviewing the features, she's like setting up the hypothesis, the testing around it. So she's like really doing the real product work. She's not writing any descriptions of how the feature looks like. She's like really involved in it with customers. So that's really cool.
Okay. And then the engineers, they build it. How do they do it? Like where does the input come from? And yeah, classic, if we like it or not, many teams work this way, that somebody writes the description, a PRD or something in Jira probably.
Yeah.
and then passes on to the engineering, and the engineering says it's not detailed enough, and then it goes back and so on and so forth. And until the engineer at one point says, yeah, that's fine, now I can work on this. Yeah. How does it work now? How do they know what to build?
Exactly. This is not happening anymore. Like, I think the most important thing is that engineering becomes more involved with customers. So they really need to understand the customer problems and understand, like, what are we really building there? Why are we building that? So it's not like a handover anymore. It's like really them being involved in the customer problem. And I think for some engineers that are speaking German, because we're a construction industry in the German sector, so some engineers are English speaking, so they might not get the raw data from interviews. So that's where they would do workshops together and like refine the features together. So they might even use Lovable to vibe code this feature really quick. Like, what do we really want to do there? Then engineers can ask questions. They like work together on it. And I think that way they get a really deep understanding of what they really want to build here, not with a description of this is the output, but what is our outcome we want to achieve with customers. And that's kind of cool.
So basically the direction comes from the customers and not from product anymore.
I think the product is translating the customer pain points still. Like, I think since they are not involved in every customer interview, it's still product doing the synthesizing, making the explanation of this is what we want to do. And then it's not product and design sitting down and making a mock-up and then handing it over, but it's more the trio sitting together and really like understanding it together. What do we want to build here? And then engineering pretty much runs off and like tries it out.
Where basically the design is actually not so much involved anymore.
Yes, at least not in detail. There might be parts where they're involved, but not like it was before, like product and design build a mock-up, and then this was like the definition of what engineering built. This is not, it's more fluent.
Happening in there.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Maybe adding one last thing, because this is happening now. I have no clue how this is working out now, but what is going to start is that product managers will start writing code. Like, we will make a totally new setup of like where product managers can work with Cloud Code or whatever we are deciding for now. And I think in the future, product managers will ship small features to production themselves, where engineering is just reviewing. So as an example, if there's a change in the table in the filtering, there won't be a ticket to engineering anymore. This is something I'm pretty sure product people and designers are doing themselves in the future. They will ship code to production. And on the other side, I think product managers will start vibe coding more with real code. So not just in Lovable, where you like put in a screenshot of your product and then build something, but you will vibe code in the real code. This is what I think is going to happen. We are just starting with this. So we want all product managers to get the setup to code themselves, and then we try out what happens. So we don't know yet, and we don't know how it's going, but this is the next thing we're doing over the next 1 to 2 months.
That's exciting. So maybe we have to then write an article about how it goes.
Yes, we can. Absolutely.
Okay, so that was scenario 1, like building a feature. Then there's scenario 2. automations?
I think, or do you mean a scenario 2 is productizing AI, not automations or like,
Aha, sorry.
yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
yes.
Like,
Productizing.
so
Yeah,
this
sorry.
was building normal SaaS features. And now the part is like, hey, what happens if I build an AI feature on top of this? So I make an example with a concrete or something concrete that everyone can understand and is tangible. So we build a conversational agent on top of our software. So you can imagine we have a lot of construction data on all financial processes. And now you have an agent that you can interact with. So you could ask, hey, which construction project is over budget? Where are contracts that I should have a look at? So, and now you can interact with it and then it answers. So this is the AI feature we're talking about now. So just so you have a little bit of a feeling. The team started working on this mid 2025. So we have 26 now, yeah, mid to 20. So in summer 25. And what was crazy is like 2 weeks after they started with it, they had a feasible prototype live and tested it with 5 customers. So they had the conversational agent live within 2 weeks. And
nice.
What happened was like the output was already working, and I would say it was an 80% case. So 80% of the questions could be answered pretty okay. And then that's where AI features become more difficult. So getting this small 80% case is really, really fast. But getting the output better now, that's where the magic lies. And that's where the change of product management lies. So the team first started to ditch Scrum. Totally. Scrum didn't work anymore. 2 weeks were too long. Every 2 days, they had a new idea. Every 2 weeks, they learned something new. The iterations with a 2-week sprint didn't work. So they had a Kanban board and had a check-in every 2 days. And then they decided again, like, what do we improve on? Like, what are we doing? What should we evaluate? And so on. So this was the first thing. Then the other thing that I already mentioned was fast testing with real user data from pretty much day one, and building feasible prototypes from day one. And then product managers, the role of the product managers was a lot about evaluating and observability. So we had to set up an observability and evaluation tool. I don't know if you've heard of LangFuse. That's just the tool we are using. And what you can do there is you pretty much see all the inputs from customers, so all the questions coming in, so pretty much the user prompt. And then you can track like how this user prompt comes to an output. So in between there are like, it calls an LLM, then it makes tool calls, so to get data from our platform, then it has another agent that does something and so on. And then there comes an output. And now you kind of need to track from an input to an output, was this a good output or not? And you need to learn to evaluate this and say, what is even a good output? You need to test it. So if you're now doing a change in it, so if I, for example, change the system prompt, so just the description of the prompt the agent is using, is the output now getting better or worse? And that's a lot what the product management work has become in this 3 or 6 months they were working on. They did the context engineering, so which context needs to come in. They did the observability and the evaluation. And with that, they tested it with customers continuously to figure out if it's already helpful or not.
Wow, that's a lot. So basically, also making the case, building an AI feature is different than building a normal feature, let's say.
Exactly, and it needs other product skills. This is like really where product management
changes
so much because it's non-deterministic. I think that's the important part. Like when you build a SaaS product, it's a deterministic feature. You know exactly how the UI looks like. This is happening one after this. And now with an AI feature, you're in non-determinism. You put something in and you have no clue what is coming out. So how do you track this? How do you improve on this? And that's kind of where product managers are and what they need to learn. And yeah, I don't know. There's like a whole bunch of things about like how you evaluate this. I don't know if you want to go deeper into this, but I think that is actually the part that excites me the most, building AI features, because it makes product work really different. And I have no clue who in the long term is going to do this. Is this an engineering work, the evaluation? But you need to be really close to customers to understand if the output is good or not. Here it was also really like the roles were really fluent. Engineers did testings, did evaluations, the product manager did. So it was really, really cooperative.
Okay, that's also a very good point. Like, who is going to do it later? So much to say and ask about, but let me maybe ask this: is there something that went completely wrong, and you rolled back and said, like, okay, we cannot do it this way because this is what shit. I said shit in a podcast. Shit.
Yes. Actually, there was one thing, like when we started with the conversational agent, we just built it for the whole product right from the beginning. And then we realized, like, and it was so cool. We were all so excited because 80% of the outputs were really good. But then we improved on it. We like changed tool calls, we changed the system prompt, and somehow we didn't really get it to a good output, like a better output, like the 95% output we would need in order to really bring value to customers. And then we understood that our scope was too big. Because it's really difficult and in a non-deterministic process. If the scope is huge, then you change something in the system prompt, and then the output for one part of the scope might get better, but for 3 other parts, it might get worse. So what are you doing? That's why we kind of ditched it again and then started to say, hey, let's start with one part of our product. So as an example, then for some time, you were only able to ask questions for budgets and not for invoices yet. So we made a really small scope, and then we improved the output just for this part of the scope. And then we added another part and added another part. And this way we were able to like really keep in control of it. And this is like the biggest learning we had. And where we said, like, hey, the other way, it wouldn't have worked.
So when you build an AI feature, you have to make the changes smaller. Make sure that the part of the feature that you want to change or adapt or improve is smaller.
Yes, you want to start with a controllable scope, I would say. I would have put it that way. And of course, if you build an conversational agent, the non-determinism is really, really big because it's open. The conversation is open that comes in, and it's open what comes out. So there are AI features that are less flexible, I would say. Like as an example, if you come to the example from the beginning where we said we have the invoice coming in and it's checked to the contract. This is also a feature we were building. So you're checking like on the invoice, there are certain line items like what they have to pay, and then it's checked for the contract. And in this part, it's not as open as the other part. It's clear. The input is clear that is coming in. It's clear on what is going to be checked on, and you can control it more easily. So I would say here, it's not that much about the scope. There, it's probably more about the edge cases. What happens if they don't have a contract uploaded? What happens if they, I don't know, there are other difficulties in this case than building a conversational agent.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Maybe let's get back to the whole theme of AI adoption. So these were great examples of how the ways of working have changed, how the roles and the team structure has changed. So this team has a PM, a designer who comes in not so often, and how many engineers you said?
4 to 5.
4 to 5 engineers. And the other teams as well?
Yes.
Okay. So coming back to AI adoption and to measure if everything is going well, kind of. So how did you measure success of the AI adoption, whatever that means? So you would have to first explain us what AI adoption meant to you. I'm pretty sure nobody in your company said, we're going to go through an AI adoption, blah, blah. I'm pretty sure it didn't. And it also sounds like it was a very natural thing that happened. And at the same time, as good product people, we have to make sure we know what good looks like, right? And when we have achieved it. So how did you measure the benefits versus the downsides? And how did you measure the success of the new ways of working? And how did you measure a successful AI adoption? Probably 4 things that I'm asking you.
Yeah.
Not sure.
So I think the first part is like looking at adoption again on the whole organizational level. So I think on the whole organizational level, it's about how many people are working with large language models and how good are they working with it. So BF as an example, we are using LangDoc. So this is like an AI platform where you can use different large language models, foundation models, where you can set up agents and so on. This makes it really handy to structure a little bit of how people are working with it. So I think this is the first thing, like how many people are working with it. And just working with it still doesn't mean this is good quality. So I think this is the biggest issue I'm also experiencing. Like I can't read through some of the AI swap that people are sending to me in Notion pages. It's horrible. So sometimes I really prefer like 3 lines that someone has written themselves. So this is still something I'm struggling with.
But
Or
how do
I
you
think a lot
measure
of
the quality? Sorry, I
it's just
interrupted
on an
you. I was like,
individual
how do you
level.
measure quality? Sorry?
Yes, like I think this is where we can't really measure quality, at least not in scale. It's more about like people need to learn how they use LLMs. And I think it's more in the individual level. If someone sends me something that is AI slop, I'm just telling them I'm not reading it. They have to send me 3 bullet points and really give me an insight that I didn't know, that doesn't feel like blur. So I think this is just something the organization as a whole needs to learn. I had no clue how we could measure it. I just,
Okay.
it's just, this is really something I experience as a huge problem for organizations. So this is the first thing. How does the whole organization work with it? Then the next thing is like, where are processes that I can automate? So from the insight management process to the customer support process to enrichment processes in sales. And I think those are really nicely to measure. So as an example, the customer support process, we saved 20 hours a week for customer support to answer tickets. So this was nice to measure. For the
So
insight
basically
management,
project by project, like the
yeah,
outcome, measuring
exactly.
the outcome inside. Okay. Okay.
Because you probably have a goal when you set it up. Then you kind of need to measure what you want to reach with it. I would say with the insight management, where we transcribe all the calls and then interact with it, this is not so much about an efficiency case. This is probably more about learning. Do we get better product insights with it? And I think we're in the learning loop right now. I can't really say what is our KPI here. I can't say product discovery is going to be faster because of this. I can't not say yet it's going to be better, because what is better? So I feel like I'm in the loop really defining that and trying it out myself and talking to my product managers a lot of like, hey, how do you work? What is working good? Do we still need an insight management that categorizes insights, or can we just keep it as a conversational agent? I have no clue about this yet. We're learning here. And then the last thing is like, how do you measure AI features? And I think this is not different to how it was before that. Like the question is, how high is the adoption of people using it? How is the retention of it? How much value do they perceive with it? What is the willingness to pay? And of course, on top of this, there are coming costs now because of tokens and all of this. And I think this is something we're not optimizing yet for, because right now we're just trying out like, where can we create customer value? Do they use it? How do they feel with it? But I'm pretty sure this will be a topic in the future as well, to make features more efficient token wise.
Yeah, because that can be pretty expensive, right? And then the ROI of a feature
Yes,
needs to be discussed in a different way, probably.
exactly. Or you need to do the pricing differently. Maybe it's not just it
For the whole
might be a
business
pricing
model.
based on volumes that you have in a
Yeah.
LLM.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So talking about the benefits and success, is there any, so many people, many organizations say that they want to go adopt AI in their organization because they promise themselves, or they think it will increase their productivity, efficiency, create more in the same time or even faster. Is there any measure around this? Or even if there's no official measure, is there something that you could say like, yes, here and there we are faster, more efficient, whatever, but then at the same time it shifted because now we have to do more XYZ instead?
I think in general, the efficiency we will feel, especially with not hiring new roles anymore. I feel like we won't grow as much, but will be capable of doing more with the smaller amount of people. And I think this will hit product and engineering. I'm pretty sure, like, this is nothing that is clear yet, but I'm pretty sure that in the future, there will be probably less engineers per product manager. There might not be a designer for each team, but more maybe a shared design resource. And I think with all of this, it already sizes down a little bit. Then customer support, as an example, through the automation will slowly go down a little bit. HR processes will be automated. And I think with that, we will for sure need less resources in the future to do the same things we already like, just to keep Alasco running the way we run it right now.
Okay, so you would definitely say there's quite some productivity increase and efficiency increase.
For sure.
At
And
the same,
yeah, the question
yeah,
is
at the
what.
same. Sorry,
You
go,
you
go.
okay.
You go. You're the guest. You go.
And I think the interesting part will be with the freed up time that people have now, what is going to happen with it. Like, this is kind of an interesting thing. Like, maybe customer support is like now understanding or is doing different things and is creating new value that we didn't expect to happen. So I think there's also not just like, I don't think we should just talk about like making the organization smaller, and we are not planning on this. We might just not rehire. But I do believe that with freed up resources, people might do other things and get new ideas. And I think that's the interesting part, where a lot of people have a chance now of like figuring out new things.
And I actually have an opinion on that I didn't tell many people. So my opinion is that when you free up people's time, they have more thinking time, and someone who has more thinking time has also more creativity time. And there's a chance that I believe if companies go this path to keep their people instead of downsizing, that they could enable the people to bring up innovation way better. And it doesn't have to be the product person who does that. It could be the customer support person, because this person reads the stuff that's coming in and out, right? So every day. So this person is very much qualified, just as an example, to come up with an innovative idea that everybody else couldn't, and they couldn't themselves either, because they were so busy doing busy work. And now with more thinking time,
yes,
giving people the chance to be more creative and actually do fun stuff for the company that moves the company forward, like the 20% rule at Google, right? So use your 20% to do fun stuff.
Yep.
And many of those became real products, right?
Yes, 100% agree with that.
Coming to an end, I'm looking at the clock. Thank you for joining. My very last question. Imagine you're an advisor to a friend, and this friend wants to go through or wants to adopt AI in their company. What would be your biggest advice? Like things that they should be aware of or be cautious about or do because this works? Like, I'm not only looking for the positive stuff, right? But I'm looking for the real Big Bang learnings here.
I can actually make it pretty realistic, because that's what I would tell the companies that I'm consulting. So I would say the first thing is enablement of people. People need to understand what is AI, how do large language models work, how do I use them to get out good quality, how do I do prompt engineering, how can I identify processes that might be automized. Like, just understanding this is, I think, the first step. Then probably building up a team, or at least some tech-savvy people who can really automate processes, just like we call him go-to-market engineer, but could be in another organization, operations team, whatever. So like, where can you automate processes and help people scale what they are already doing? And then the third part, and I think this is especially to product people, I think product people need to understand, like, how do I use AI for product discovery, but how do I use it properly, like not just like put it in and create AI slop, but how do I keep my own thinking and combine it with AI to become better than I have been, not just faster. And I think that's the second part for product people. Product people need to understand how to build AI products. So how do you build evaluations, observability, like all of this. And this is just a new skill. And to be honest, it's not that complex. So product people don't need to be totally anxious about it because you can learn this pretty fast. It's just about experiencing it. And that's the last part and the most important. We all have to try it out. We can't read about it. We can't hear podcasts about it. We have to sit down, try out vibe coding, try out to work with code in production. Like we have to try out Claude co-work. It's about trying it out and just experiencing it, and with that learning and not just consuming information. So that's what I'm also really focusing on all the workshops I'm doing with my clients.
Wonderful. And I'm thinking if I should have light now or not, because now I have the question like, what about upskilling? Like, if there are any upskilling programs also at Alasco, or how, like, do you have an experience about that? Because you mentioned like last, like point 3 and 4, right? So like try it out and learn. And with learning, I'm like, okay, is there also like some guided learning or not?
Like we
What do you think
drive the
about that?
learning internally. Also, our CTO is really AI savvy, so he does a lot, I do a lot, and then we do a lot over our network. So other startups, and especially AI first startups that are like have started with this and are building AI products, and we're learning from them with them. So we don't use any external workshops or trainers for our teams. We just build it up internally.
So, but you do have some upskilling guidance through bringing people in,
Yes.
and so that your team can learn from those people how to do
Yes.
X, Y, Z.
But
Okay.
it's, to be honest, really driven by the team themselves, like going to
Okay.
meetups and then they share learning. So they are all so eager to learn. So we don't have to do a lot for that.
Okay. That's great. So
Yeah.
it's more internal motivation to learn
Exactly.
themselves rather than we take you by the hand and show you
Exactly.
how this works and then you go and try. Okay. Wonderful.
Yes.
Sorry, I have
Yes.
lied. So that was now my last question. Thank you very, very much, Julia, for joining this conversation. I mentioned to you I'm doing this for all the people out there who are trying to understand what it actually means to work with AI, either because they want to adopt AI in their companies and they don't know where to start, or they don't know how this looks like, how it could look like, and get some inspiration, or for those who are in the middle of it and are looking for an inspiration of what could be next. So I'm pretty sure, especially talking about the details of how your teams work now, will give them a lot of inspiration and also excitement, probably how this could really work in a good way, right? So therefore, thank you very much for all the details.
Thank you, Vishwa. I really enjoyed the conversation with you.
And I hope everybody else who's watching this or who watched this now and seeing this message, I hope you enjoyed it as well. And yeah, get some next steps for yourself. Thank you.
Bye.